today, firstly, I thought I was going to be a really good vlogger and get Moreno in my intro, but if you can see that rain, yeah, I'm not getting out of this car for a wee while, so the intro is going to have to be here, but at least appreciate that I'm at the yard. Today's video is my last video before my dressage competition, so I just thought I would do like a little run through of my training, voiceovers, showing you a few practice runs, just talking about how it all went. It'll be another voiceover, sorry if you don't like voiceovers, because I'm apparently a big fan of them. But yeah, I'm going to keep the intro really short and sweet because I do actually need to go out and get Moreno sorted, and this rain does not seem to be easing up anytime soon. So I'm going to stop rambling. I do hope you enjoy this video, and also I've actually already done my dressage, so next week's video is going to be a little dressage video. I did it yesterday, and spoiler, I'm very happy. So you have to stay tuned next week to find out how that went. But yes, that's enough of my rambling. Let's go on into the video. I do hope you enjoy it. Again, sorry if you don't like voiceovers. But yeah, no, right, Ellie, shut up, stop rambling. Let's go on in. Hope you enjoy.
So this day I just wanted to run through my test a few times at the end of my ride. I always run through a test at the end of my ride and try and imitate the ride as my warm-up. So a thing with me is that I am atrocious at centre lines. So I made Dean stand, Dean's my boyfriend, and forced him to stand in exactly the same place. I was like, I'm going to try and run you over, okay? And it was a bit, there's a few wobbly ones, but that one wasn't too bad. As you can see, I asked him to film me coming down the centre line, and then he didn't realise that he had to keep filming after that, so excuse that little break. But yeah, you can just see it's all right. You know, Moreno's he's feeling a bit fussy. He wasn't going great this day. He'd had a few spooks. There was a pheasant going around the place like a maniac. Someone was in the lunge pen just before this was taken. And there was new people moving to the yard, so he wasn't really focusing on me at all. But I wanted to try it anyway because at a show, obviously, if things like that happen, you can't just not do your test. So as you can see, he does start to come back to me, you know, at points. There is some nice stuff there, but he's quite behind the leg, and I'm having to use quite a lot of that made no sense. Having to use quite a lot of leg and having to use my whip, and the transitions aren't as sharp as I'd like them to be. He's a bit wobbly because he's so behind the leg. There's Dean's hand. Again, you can see how much leg I'm having to use. But just powering through, there he sees something again. But that wasn't too bad. He goes between a bit too collected and a bit too fast here. He's just focusing on everything except me. But my main aim here was to just ride for accuracy, to make sure I knew the test, to try and hit all my markers, try and do everything in the right spot. So that walk was a little bit late, but honestly, our walk, last year, it was our worst pace. We got ripped to shreds by every judge because of our walk. So this I was actually chuffed with. Now, the practice before this, I'd asked him to stretch and he just took off because he saw ghosts again. But I was actually quite happy with this. I couldn't let him go too much because he would have just properly went. But yeah, that wasn't actually too bad for him. There was also a part in this test, he tries to canter there, he's not meant to. There's also a part in this test where I come back from canter and I have to do a stretchy trot circle, which I just could not get in any of these practices. You'll see it coming up. But yeah, that canter is it's just a bit meh. It's just a bit sluggish, not really what I wanted it to be. My circles were humongous. I think that one was too big and the previous one was too small. But again, you know, it's all right. It's just all right. Here is when we come into the stretchy circle. I just could not really get. He just tried to run off with me. He wouldn't bend, and he just went like the absolute clappers. So after this, I was actually feeling a wee bit disheartened after this test. And I was going to just put Moreno away because he had actually worked quite well before this. He'd just seen something just before that had made this bit go a bit not great. There he tries to go into a bit of a medium trot and I'm like, no, Moreno, don't do that. But yeah, feeling a bit disheartened. I was going to just put him back to bed, and then I thought, actually, I'm going to give it another go because the weather was meant to turn really bad and this was going to be my last practice before the actual show itself. So I was like, no, I'm going to give it another go. But I told my boyfriend not to bother filming it because at this point I wasn't going to make this a video because I was just quite disheartened with that test. And then I was like, actually, this is going really well, Dean, film this quickly. So he's not in the same position because he was about to go back to the car, and I was like, wait, no, film this is going really well. So look at the improvement in this horse. Like, obviously he's still a wee bit on his toes, but he is so much more forward. I don't know what happened. He's really like going into the contact really nicely, nice forward steps. I'm using a lot less leg and a lot less of my whip as well. He's just trotting along so lovely, so pleasantly. He's not really looking at anything either. He's being an absolute lamb. The canter transitions were, let me see how this one goes, pretty spot on. You can see he's really soft in the canter. He's just plodding along. He's not spooking, he's not going too quick, he's staying in a nice rhythm. I was just buzzing at this point. And then because he was being so good, it made it a lot easier for me to ride an accurate test. So that was obviously even better. His downward transitions, how do these go? Oh, that was actually pretty spot on as well. He does lift his head up a little bit, but you know, we're not expecting perfection here. We're just trying to make it work. His walk here is a little bit too free, but I think that's because he was getting tired at this point, so I can't really blame him for that. But he does do a lovely free walk across here. He really stretches down, which is something he really struggles with. He stretches out rather than down. I think I've mentioned this a lot. But I was so pleased with him for that, because he does genuinely really struggle with that. And then I asked him for medium walk and then trot here, I believe. Yep, that wasn't the best transition in the world, but still better than the previous test. And then he canters here. He was a little bit sprightly coming up this long side. He was quite bouncy. But again, I would rather him too forward than too lazy, I think. So then we do another little circle up here, don't we? We do. And again, he stands so supple and so nice and soft in my hand, which I was thrilled with. The stretchy circle, it wasn't great. It wasn't great, but it was one of the best that we'd managed in our practices. It's coming up just now. So I didn't have high hopes for this, so I was just kind of glad that I was able to give him a bit of rain. He didn't take off really. But yeah, look, there is a bit of improvement there. We are getting somewhere. It's very free steps. He loves that bit, I think. And then we go across the diagonal in a minute, and then we walk. But you can just see, like, I was so pleased that we did this extra run through, because this really gave me a huge confidence boost. And we actually had a really bad storm for the next week after this, and I didn't get to ride at all before my test, fun fact. So I was thrilled that I managed to get this ride in, because it was my last ride. And if I had left him on that bad note in the previous test, I would have been devastated. But I was so happy with this, and I think this really helped my whole mindset on the day of the test as well.
So I hope you guys enjoyed this week's video. If you can't tell, I also tried to film my outro out with Moreno. It did get sunny for about 5 seconds, put him out in the field, and then this started again, and that's why my hair's gone mad. So again, you're going to have to bear with and appreciate the fact that I'm at the yard but in my car and there's no horses involved. But I do hope you enjoyed this week's video anyway. Next week's video will be the actual dressage test and a little voiceover of my test sheet and everything and what the judge said. So I do hope you enjoyed, and I hope you enjoy next week's as well, because I'm very excited to post it. But that is all for this week's video. If you did enjoy it, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you next week for another video. Bye!